Golden child older brother is jobless loser who lives off my parents. But dad tells me I have to pay. My name is Ethan, and at 27, I'm drowning in a debt that isn't mine, forced to pay for a brother who's never lifted a finger. Last week, dad sat me down, his voice heavy with that old, unshakable certainty, and said, "You're the responsible one. Ethan, cover the house bills, or we lose everything." Meanwhile, my older brother, Caleb, the golden child who can do no wrong, was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone, probably ordering another gaming console with mom's credit card. I've spent my life clawing my way through a world that demands I prove myself, working two jobs to keep a roof over my head, while Caleb, at 33, drifts through life like a king in our parents' crumbling kingdom. This isn't a story about fairness. It's about what happens when love becomes a chain and duty feels like betrayal. I was 10 when I first noticed the difference. Caleb would come home with a C on his report card, and mom would beam, saying, "He's got such a big heart." I'd bring home straight A's, and dad would nod, muttering, "That's what's expected of you." By high school, Caleb's charm had cemented his throne. He'd skip classes, crash dad's car, and somehow end up with a new leather jacket, while I was scolded for forgetting to mow the lawn. I thought it would change when we grew up, that the world would balance the scales. I was wrong. After college, I moved out, got a job as a junior accountant, and started building a life. It wasn't glamorous long hours, cheap coffee, a studio apartment with peeling paint, but it was mine. Caleb, though he never left. He's still in his childhood bedroom, surrounded by posters of bands that broke up a decade ago. He doesn't work. He doesn't try. He just exists, soaking up mom and dad's savings like a sponge. They call it helping him find his way. I call it enabling. Last month, everything changed. I got a call from mom, her voice trembling. "Ethan, we're behind on the mortgage. Your dad's pension isn't enough. And, well, Caleb's been struggling. The guy spends his days playing video games and his nights at bars, racking up tabs he never pays." I drove to their house, my stomach twisting, knowing what was coming. Dad didn't even look at me when he said it. "We need you to step up. Pay the bills. Ethan, Caleb's not ready. Not ready." Those words burned into me, hotter than any anger I'd ever felt. I wanted to scream, to ask why Caleb, 6 years older, was still not ready while I, at 27, was expected to carry the weight of their bad decisions. But I didn't. I nodded, like I always do, because that's what the responsible one does. I handed over half my savings, $3,000 money I'd scraped together for a car, and left without saying goodbye. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at the eviction notice I'd been ignoring. My own rent was late, but I couldn't tell them that. They'd never ask Caleb to pay. He's their golden boy, untouchable, perfect in their eyes despite his failures. The next day, I confronted Caleb. He was in the garage, tinkering with a motorcycle he'd bought with Dad's money, one he'd never ride. "Why don't you get a job?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He laughed, that lazy, infuriating chuckle. "Why should I? Mom and Dad got me covered. You should loosen up, little bro." I wanted to punch him, to wipe that smirk off his face, but I didn't. Instead, I walked away, my hands shaking, my mind racing with a question I couldn't answer. Why was I paying for his life? Weeks passed, and the weight grew heavier. I took on extra shifts, skipped meals to save money, and watched my dreams of a better apartment, a stable future slip further away. Every paycheck went to their mortgage, their utilities, their groceries. While Caleb posted pictures online of new sneakers and late-night parties, I stopped sleeping. My mind stuck on the unfairness of it all. Why did I have to be the adult? Why was Caleb's comfort worth more than my survival? Then came the breaking point. Mom called, her voice soft and apologetic. "Ethan, we need a little more this month. Caleb's, well, he got into some trouble. He owes a guy at the bar. I froze on how much I asked, already dreading the answer. 2,000, she whispered. $2,000 for Caleb's bar tab. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. I can't. Mom, I'm broke. There was silence on the other end. Then Dad's voice, stern and unyielding. You'll figure it out. Ethan, you always do. I hung up, my heart pounding. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about value, who they valued, who they saw as worthy. Caleb was their pride, their joy, their golden child, while I was the workhorse expected to toil without complaint. I couldn't do it anymore. I drove to their house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I walked in, Caleb was on the couch, eating takeout they couldn't afford. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen, whispering about bills. I didn't wait for them to notice me. I'm done, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. I'm not paying for Caleb's life anymore. Dad's face hardened. You'd let us lose the house, your own family. I looked at Caleb, still scrolling through his phone. Unbothered. Why don't you ask your golden boy to step up for once? I said, Caleb snorted, not even looking up. Good luck with that, he muttered. Mom started crying, but I didn't back down. I told them about my eviction notice, my empty bank account, the way I'd been killing myself to keep them afloat. For the first time, Dad didn't have an answer. He just stared at the floor, his hands clenched. Caleb finally looked up, his smirk gone, replaced by something I couldn't rate guilt, maybe, or just surprise. I didn't care. I walked out, leaving them to deal with the mess they'd created. The days that followed were quiet. Mom called, but I didn't answer. I needed space, time to figure out who I was when I wasn't carrying their burdens. I started looking for a second job, not for them, but for me to save my apartment, to rebuild my life. Then, a week later, Caleb showed up at my door. He looked different, tired, maybe even humbled. I got a job, he said, his voice low. It's just at a warehouse, but it's something. I didn't know what to say. Was this real, or another act to keep the status quo? He handed me a crumpled envelope with $500 inside. It's not much, he said, but I'll pay you back. For real this time. I took the money, not because I believed him, but because I needed it. We stood there, two brothers who'd never really known each other, separated by years of favoritism and resentment. Why now, I asked. He shrugged, looking away. Guess I got tired of being the loser. It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. I don't know if Caleb will change, or if Mom and Dad will ever see me as more than the responsible one. But for the first time, I felt like I'd taken back a piece of myself. I'd drawn a line, and whether they crossed it or not, I was done living for their approval. This story isn't over. Caleb's job might last a week, or it might be the start of something new. Dad might never admit he was wrong, and Mom might keep crying every time I say no. But I've learned something. Family isn't about who pays the bills or who gets the praise. It's about respect, and I'm done giving mine to people who don't return it. I'm 27 and I'm not the golden child, but maybe I don't need to be. What do you think? Was I right to walk away, or should I have kept carrying the load for my family? Share your thoughts. I want to know where you stand on what's right and what's wrong.